to show me the truth, because I wanted a common God between the Quran and the Bible, as I wanted to compare the two in order to convert my Mexican-American wife to Islam. So I told her that the Bible was corrupted. Well, who corrupted it? The Jews, of course. The Jews corrupted the Bible. The Jews are prophet killers. They spread mad cow disease. They put infertility drugs for us Palestinians so we don't have any children. Like we don't have more children per capita than anybody else in the world. The Jews caused tsunamis. The Jews put AIDS in the Cadbury chocolates. The 911 is all by Jews. It's before the 911 anyway. Well, her question, I made my speech to her, and of course it was question and answer time, just like you guys have here. She said, well, can you show me corruptions, please? If you show me the corruptions, I will become Muslim. I said, okay, I'll show you the corruptions, but I don't know where they are. She said, why do you make claims of things that you don't know anything about? You always do that. You're supposed to be the leader of the house. She got me there. And I guess love conquers all. A beautiful woman from Mexico. I mean, she is pretty. And I did not want to lose my wife. And I bought a Bible. It's finally worn out. I couldn't take it with me in my trips anymore. I was living in California. And I was fighting with my wife like cats and dogs. And I learned very quickly in America, the husband is the one that hits the couch. So, and when I hit the couch, I remember I just had nothing to do but to compare the Bible with the Quran. I became so interested in trying to find the corruptions in the Bible. And I remember I made a mistake. I wanted to pray to God to show me where the corruptions are. But I wanted to pray to God in a way that both books will agree to, both Christian, Judeo-Christian faith and Muslims will agree to. Well, we both agree that He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael. So I said, I pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But I pray with all my heart. I want to know the truth. Those are the two words, the truth. Who is the truth? I want to know the truth. Show me the truth. And if you show me the truth, I'll do anything you want me to do. Anything. Never make that deal with God. When you make a deal with God, and you pray in the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, do you know what happens? You dial the right number. And somebody in the other end picks up. And you don't hear anything. Although you know you have this great desire to seek Him with all your heart, your might, and your soul. And I began to compare the two, thinking in my mind that the Quran will be superior. I was convinced ahead of time that the Quran will be superior, but as I started to read in Genesis all the way to the end to Revelation, I was shocked beyond belief. Right from Genesis 3:15, He put enmity between the devil and the woman. That the woman will be hated for bringing the seed, the Messiah. Why did we have no women's rights in our Sharia law? Why was enmity all the time in all these cults? In Mormonism, the treatment of women. My mother's story, she's an American who met my father in Humboldt State College and ended up visiting the Middle East for 35 years. How can you visit the Middle East for 35 years? She couldn't say anything. She learned the day that she arrived to the Middle East, that the Middle East is what I call the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. And that's Islam as well. Once you become a Muslim, you cannot check out. You can check out in a coffin. I knew that ahead of time. So I knew that as soon as I started to begin to read the Bible, one word that grabbed my mind. And I don't care what anybody thinks, believes, opinions that I see out there. I will always hold to that one word that grabbed my heart. That word is Israel. Because all my life I hated that nation. I wanted to kill Jews all my life. I grew up as a Muslim all my life. And I was vehemently bent on the destruction of the state of Israel. That's why we were terrorists. That's why I planted a bomb in a bank. That's why I nearly lynched an Israeli soldier. Want to talk about lynching? He was bleeding like a fountain until, for some miraculous reason, he jumped across the fire line to the other side where his fellow Israeli soldiers rescued him. I came to the States. I joined the PLO. I was active in the PLO. I was the head of the Palestinian Student Association in my college. Was disenfranchised with the PLO. I wanted something more puritanical, so I joined the Muslim Brotherhood under Jamal Saeed, who was the colleague of Abdullah Azzam, the mentor of Osama bin Laden. And he still runs his mosque in Bridgeview, Illinois. He used to bring speakers from the Azzam family in America. And as a matter of fact, one time I issued a press release to show the Americans what we were doing here in your heartland. And nobody in the press wanted to show the video. It was just too much to be able to chew on. Because you would think this stuff is happening in Gaza. It's happening in Tehran. It's happening in Lebanon. But it was happening here in the heartland of America, what we were doing. And as I started to read and got to all the biblical verses, and it's a long, long story, but he wanted me to cover for 5 minutes. Isaiah said, "For I am God, there is no other. I am God, there is none like me, foretelling the end from the beginning." That is a major key verse. Major key verse that no other religion has. Nothing of all the isms can carry. Nobody can claim such a claim that God draws the future in the past. Just like he said. So when you see it happen, that you know that I'm God. And he said, "You are nothing, and he who follows you is an abomination." I began to ponder these verses and began to write and write and write and write. I wrote my first parchment, "Dear Muslim, let me tell you why I believed." Put it for free in the internet. Nobody wanted anything for free. And then I became a believer. I woke my wife that night and I told her that I just become a Christian. And she thought something was wrong with me. She turned off the light. She said, "Tomorrow you'll be okay." I turned. I know you're laughing, but it's the honestly true, exact statement that she told me. And I turned the light back on. We were playing this game of turn the light on, turn the light off, turn the light on. I said, "Listen, honey, I will die with that faith. God has a plan. And he said, if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can move the mountain. And I'm going to move the mountain. I'm going to start telling the whole world the truth about the darkness of Islam and the truth about what is happening and what's ahead of us here in America and the rest of the world." Thank you very much.
It's kind of like a two-part deal.
Not an involved construction project, is it?
It's that was not a cheap shot. It's supposed to be funny. But anyway, being that it takes several generations for a country to overcome negative thought patterns, as like Russia, they're done with communism 15, 20 years ago now. And the country is still under the grips of organized crime and stuff like that. Or being that, like an Islamic country would, let's say they converted to Christianity, it would take them a while to adapt to Western thought, Western thought patterns and stuff like that, adapt themselves to a democratic way of thinking. And also, being that Islam does not promote a rational thought process, but rather a irrational one that makes no sense at all. It doesn't lead down a logical thought pattern. Being that those two factors combining, would you say, the panel up here, because you are familiar with Islam and you're ex-military, would you say, keeping those two factors in mind, that it was a good idea for the United States to invade Iran, or Iraq, I mean?
Well, I don't know what other options we had. And people can Monday morning quarterback and say, oh, we should have done this or should have done that. But let's keep in mind, at the time, we said that we had weapons there. We were already attacked. And we, for all the basis of the information, I think it was a legitimate decision based on the information that we had. Now, where we didn't go is what Newt Gingrich said back, I guess, a couple of months back, is that the military worked fine. What hasn't worked is the State Department and the other subsidiary bureaucratic agencies of the government. Been a very sloppy job. In particular is the cultural connection there. So I can say that I fully supported the decision. I still do. I think we can let Walid respond to that because he's more intimate to the Middle East. I'm not the Middle Eastern person here, so go ahead.
It's a great question. I think Americans need to stop regretting invading Iraq. Had I advised the president prior to the invasion of Iraq, I would say it is crucial not to remove the Ba'ath Party and the dictators in the Middle East. Because here's what's happening. Here's what America's doing that is wrong, in my opinion. What created the confidence buildup for the Muslim fundamentalist movement was America aiding the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight against the communists. Because America viewed communism as the great Satan. And so it didn't matter who they aided to defeat communism. So they aided the Mujahideen. Abdullah Azzam, by the way, was a Palestinian from Jenin. And he was the mentor of Osama bin Laden as well. Most Americans don't know that the mentor of Osama bin Laden was a Palestinian. And that created the confidence buildup for the jihadist movement that Allah gave us the victory over the communists. If Allah gave us the victory over Russia, now we have the ability to defeat the great Satan, America. We keep doing the same thing. And now Condoleezza Rice asked Israel cessation of hostilities with Lebanon, with Hezbollah. So Hezbollah declared victory when Israel pulled out of Lebanon. That creates confidence. I don't have to tell you about stock market. I'm sure many of you here have what you Americans call portfolios. And the portfolios do better when the confidence is good. And when the confidence is bad, they do worse. What's happening is that the destruction of the confidence level of American people and the greater confidence in the Middle East for the Muslims. That's what we do. The Hamilton report, all the stuff with Iraq, that's creating the confidence level. Let's pull out of Iraq. That is the worst thing Americans are doing. Americans are already in Iraq. So we are destroying our confidence level. We are building their confidence level. We did the same thing when we twisted Israel's arm to give land for peace. Well, let's give, what did they give them? Gaza. Gaza is the capital of what? Hamasistan. You've heard of Hamasistan? You created Hamasistan as a result of giving Gaza back. So had you given them something else, been different, but you give them Gaza. Gaza is the city where Hamas sprouted from. So the argument of the Islamist is what? لا تعاد فلسطين إلا بالإسلام. You can never bring Palestine unless you go back, revert back to Islamic fundamentalism. And that's exactly what you've been feeding them all the time, you Americans. Stop doing that. Don't give them the confidence level. Stay in Iraq, because if you remove from Iraq, guess what? Iran rules by proxy. The Iraqi government, 60% is Shia. There is a CIRI, the Council of Iranian Revolution in Iraq. And they rule by proxy in Syria. They rule by proxy in Lebanon via Hezbollah, which is a state within a state. Northern Israel is a threat. The whole world will never be the same. But now you have a Cold War. It's worse. You have a Cold War in the Middle East where the Sunni, 85%, wants to build its own superpower versus to respond to the Iranian threat, because the Sunnis are threatened by Iran too. That's going to create the nuclear buildup in the Middle East as we speak. Egypt, Pakistan already has one. They have few. And the whole American government is dependent on Musharraf, one man. That's not very smart. So we should stay in Iraq, fight till the end. I think President Bush has the right idea. He just doesn't have the support of the American people. And Texans need to infect Californians with their way of thinking. Thank you.
Hey, Walid, what should we do about Iran's nuke, us and or Israel? Should we bomb them or what?
Should we bomb Iran?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think someone should do, whether Israel or us?
You know, we take things smaller. trying to destroy the mechanism all at once is a mistake. You take it piece at a time. It's just like you take a bundle of sticks, take one stick, give it to him, we can all defeat it. I think what we need to do is defeat one major Islamist organization, like Hezbollah especially. We need to crush Hezbollah beyond recognition. I mean, beyond recognition. Americans, look, destroy the Taliban in a few weeks. Israel can destroy Hezbollah within a few weeks, and they can destroy Hamas within a few weeks. That's what we need to do. If we do this, but that's not what's going to happen. You see, we're going the slippery slope. If we destroy one of those major organizations, what will that do is make the Muslims think maybe Allah wasn't with us after all. Maybe there is no Allah. You know, maybe this whole thing about the myth of the jihadist Allah isn't true. But we're feeding the mechanism. That's the problem. I mean, every Muslim these days believes like, maybe it's true what these clergy are saying. I mean, look, we get Gaza back. With this, the confidence level has never been so built in the Middle East as much as now. All over, not just the Arab world, but the Iranian, in Indonesia. You know, 73.2% of Arabs in the Middle East voted for Islamic fundamentalism when the elections were going on in the Palestinian areas. That is a very, very dangerous trend, and it's growing. And we need to crush the confidence level. Americans, stop destroying your own confidence by saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't have invaded Iraq. Forget that. Move on. You've invaded Iraq. You're there. Keep it, fight for it. Keep that buffer, American military, from Iran to move in and to keep going all the way to northern of Israel. Thank you.
To what Walid said, the lesson that we should have learned from World War II was the rule that, if you remember years ago when the movie Patton came out, remember what he wanted to do in Germany? The idea was he wanted to keep the Nazis who were running the streetcars, who were doing the plumbing, who were doing the thing, and he was criticized because he was letting the Nazis run everything. And what did he say? Patton at that point turned back and he said, I'll put somebody else in the place of running the power and doing the other things when you find them. Until that time, I'm going to let the ex-Nazis run it. And that's the same thing with the Baathists, is that we probably shouldn't have thrown them all out. So there was some cultural lessons that I don't think we learned very well. So another question. Yes, ma'am.
I would like Ezekiel Walid, please, to answer this. What can you tell us more about the new information about the coming 12th Imam and how significant all of this is going to be?
The question is about the 12th Imam, the eschatology of Islam. Do you want to address that, or you want to?
Well, as you know, the 12th Imam is only on the Shia sects of Islam, and the Sunnis don't believe in that. The 12th Imam, he's supposed to be the 12th great-grandson of Ali, who was the 4th caliphate after Muhammad. The eschatology that Shiites have throughout the history has always evolved. What they have done, they have always listened to see what others, specifically Christians, say, and adopt part and pieces of that into their own eschatology. Now, this is actually the way Islam operates. They inoculate you against the truth. That is what their job is. So they get little nuggets of truth, and they build a whole lot of lies around it and feed it back to the people. So when a Christian would come and talk about the return of the Lord Jesus Christ, they say, oh, we have that in our eschatology too. Yeah, we know what it is. You guys got it all wrong, and it is all corrupted in your book. You got to come and hear it from us. But it is a very dangerous eschatology, what they have built, because what they really are talking about, if you really listen to what's happening, especially in Iran right now, they are talking about the chaos, that the 12th Imam cannot really come until there is a massive chaos into the global proportion. The whole talk that Ahmadinejad is giving about destroying Israel is not just semantics. He really means that in order for the 12th Imam come, there has to be a global confusion, and there has to be a global chaos, and that paves the way for the 12th Imam that incidentally is going to come along with Jesus, and Jesus is going to be kind of like his lieutenant, and then he's going to establish the peace, and everything's going to be okay.
Sounds like a scenario that the 12th Imam is the Antichrist and Jesus, the false prophet, is his second in command. Have you heard a relationship to that, Tommy? No?
There is an Antichrist that Iranians are talking about. There is a different Antichrist that's going to come and it's going to get defeated by the... There is an Antichrist that it's going to be there and it's going to get defeated by the 12th Imam. And it's going to be defeated in Mecca, and then he's going to go and establish his reign.
Yes, sir.
Walid have another answer on the eschatology. He has his own microphone. Don't cross it.
I love what the brother said. I mean, he's absolutely right on when it comes to this issue of 12th Imam and how the Islam has taken really Christian eschatology from the beginning, even from the time of Muhammad. You look at Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, when he said, the day of judgment shall not come to pass until the tribes of Islam defeat the tribes of Israel, and the stones and the trees will cry out, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come, Muslim, come, O servant of Allah, come and kill him. Where did he get that from? He got it from the book of Zechariah. You know, I'll make Jerusalem a trembling cup to all surrounding nations and all these things. Surrounding nations, they're Muslim, okay? But again, also, Sunnis don't believe that 12th Imam is the Mahdi. But however, both parties, whether Sunni or whether Shia, believe in the coming of the Mahdi. But one of the signs of knowing the coming of the Mahdi after the chaos, you know, amazing, why do they have to start the chaos? Look for Captain Chaos. That's where you find Satan. Is that the Mahdi brings, one of the signs is he brings a 7-year peace after the chaos. You see? So we've been set up as a Muslim when I was reading these things, and this is in fact my testimony, you know, is all these things I'm beginning to find that I was the bad guy, thinking that the good guys were the bad guys. But the bad guys were the good guys. You see? And that's the whole dilemma. And people say, you have to witness to Muslims by not showing them that they're the bad guys. No, we got to tell them they're on the wrong track. That Israel is the good guys. America is the good guys. They're the bad guys. We need to expose it. If we don't expose it, we don't confront it, ain't going to solve it. You're just going to breed Muslims with just the 4 spiritual laws. Sorry, Christians with 4 spiritual laws. It's very dangerous to produce only Christians with 4 spiritual laws. God gave us this. If he wanted 4 spiritual laws, he would have given us a booklet. Thank you.
Same lines, I heard that a guy in the 80s read Hal Lindsey's Like Our Planet Earth in Islam and wrote a similar type book within the Islamic framework, and that something like half of the Muslim world has read that. Are you either of y'all familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with the exact book, but I know they spy at us all the time. I was spying at you all the time as a Muslim. So I've been watching you. I read Great Planet Earth as a Muslim, you know. And when I came to the first edition, when Hal Lindsey wrote the book, and he talked about the Arab-Israeli conflict, I laughed. Because I said, he doesn't understand. It's not just the Arab-Israeli conflict. It's the Islamic-Israeli conflict. It's much bigger than he thinks. And then I waited for the second edition. Look at the difference. When he got the second edition after the revolution of Iran, all these things, Iran Revolution, guess what he had on the title? The Islamic-Israeli conflict. So I said, now he got the picture.
Okay, yes, another one.
I realize that the American presence in the Mideast is credible. I mean, you know, the things that you say. But there are those who say that our presence over there stirs the Muslims up. That if we would just leave, that it would not necessarily create peace, but we wouldn't have the turmoil that we have there now.
Okay, the question is about does the American presence in the current situation in the Middle East breed an increased hostility, and if we could leave, everything would kind of calm down. I think Walid could speak to that.
What you need to do is the opposite of what Muslims tell you. If you want to know what's the best route to do, hear their opinion and do exactly the opposite. It's the right route. If they want the Democratic Party to win, then you know what party is best interest for America. They want the Democrats to win. If they want you to pull out of Iraq, do the opposite. Why do they want you to pull out of Iraq after all? Ask yourself that question. It doesn't matter what you guys do. It doesn't matter. They bombed the Khobar Towers, they bombed all these places way before this situation with the Iraq war. They don't care about what you think. They don't care if you kowtow to them. The day you kowtow to them, this is the only thing that comes to their mind. You submitted. You have surrendered. You submitted to Islam. It's the opposite of what you think is what you need to do. Stop with the idea of, okay, if we get out of, every time you get out of anything, Israel, look at Israel. Every time Israel get out of any piece of land, what happened? The confidence level build up. They hate you even more. The more you submit to them, the more they will hate you. The more you are strong, the better they will respect you. In other words, you need to gain respect and not pleasing the Arab Muslim populations. The more you please them, the worse it becomes. Yes, sir.
I would just add two illustrations to that. My belief of when colonialism officially finished was 1979, when Khomeini came in. And that was the beginning of the belief we can stand up against the West. And the other very significant one, was it 82 when the Marines were killed in Beirut? That really changed the whole thing because Reagan pulled out. And that taught them, enough terrorism will cause them to get out and cause them to retreat. And it's exactly what you're saying. It builds their confidence, a momentum against Western things.
I just may add one thing from my own personal experience. It's very important to, as what's happening here, that you would make a distinction between the people and the ideology that's really feeding them. People are people everywhere. They are created in God's image, and we have to minister to them, witness to them, and so forth and so on. It is the ideology that is so hateful. And from my own personal experience, when Shah was in power, I was in Iran. Iranians loved Americans. And that's, I came to this country in 1972. That was only 34 years ago, 35 years ago. So what happened that all of a sudden Americans are hated? Well, it wasn't the Iranian people that all of a sudden decided to become haters of Americans when for so long, my father was in military, and I had contact with other Americans that would come, and they were adorned. People would want to invite them all the times in their homes and have them to be their friends. Only when you had the revolution that took place and the Islamic ideology started taking root is that when the people's heart start turning against the Americans. But prior to that, they were great.
Okay, Larry.
Yeah, personal question for Walid and Geek. Excuse me. What kind of opposition do you both possibly face or your family face to radical Muslims?
Okay, the question is what kind of personal reactions are in your immediate family and the pressures you face? So I'll let Walid speak to that first, and then G.
Well, basically, all this, the stuff that you read in the New Testament, it comes to life. Blessed are you when they persecute you. Father against son, mother against daughter, all that good stuff. The ones who will come to kill you will be thinking they're doing God a service. And I saw the martyrs who were beheaded in the name of Jesus. All that stuff that you really think it's a story or it's something that just doesn't pertain to now, it pertains to later, it just comes to life. We start clutching to those verses and to those parts of the Bible. It becomes real. It gives us great faith, and it gives us great confidence that we followed the right path. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The evidence, we have a lot of evidence as a result. So persecution is the builder of the faith. Me and my wife, I said in my testimony, we were fighting like cats and dogs. The day I became a Christian, the fights ended. people ask me, I go to American churches all the time, and I see all kinds of kind of silly things. They have 10-step program to solve your marital problems. I said, well, I just took the 1-step program that me and my wife took. I said, what's that step? I said, well, fight, witness. Stand up and fight and witness. And when you stand up and fight and witness, there's no time to lick each other's wounds. You just back to back. Her family hates her, my family hates me. She came out of Catholicism. So her family hates her, my family hates me. Guess what? We need each other so much more. So the day I became Christian, when my family found out later on, I got a call. That piece of land you have in Bethlehem, it's no more yours. If you want to reclaim it back, you have to come back to Bethlehem court, in the Sharia court. I don't know if you know what Sharia court is. They could have you executed in downtown square in Bethlehem, Manger Square, where Jesus was born. They can kill you there, lynch you upside down. That becomes a lynching pad over there. And so I said, well, another verse was fulfilled. You will lose lands. It's part of the text. That word is there, lands too. I says, wow, everything must be fulfilled. Not even one speck. When he says, he puts watchmen on the walls of Jerusalem and all that good stuff. They shall not slumber or sleep. They shall not sleep day or night. He doesn't sleep day or night. So also the people who call for Jerusalem's sake, they won't sleep day or night. And I finally discovered that was literal. Running on the road, traveling all over the place. I wanted to kill my Jewish manager and all that stuff. Finally I figured out it wasn't his fault, it was his fault. So I blamed him. And I said, I quit. And to God, quitting, okay, martyrdom. How about we just bring you upstairs? And then the response to God is one word, 2 words. Okay, may I reconsider? And that was it. Thank you.
What would happen if you went back to Bethlehem?
If I go back to my village, as my family will not greet you, once you are killed by a member of your family, because most Westerners think that honor killing is killing girls. No. Honor killing is killing anybody who leaves the faith. The Prophet Muhammad of Islam said, if you leave the faith of Islam, whoever leaves the faith of Islam, kill him. So what part of kill do you Americans don't get? We don't have allegoric interpretation in the Middle East. It's pretty much literal. And America is filled with allegoric interpretation, but there it's very literal. So family will kill you. You'll be lynched maybe in Bethlehem Manger Square, and people will put cigarette lights, and they usually take your guts out, put it in a platter as a collaborator for Israel. And it's more of me being a collaborator for Israel more than anything else would be much worse. And then, would you like me to show you some videos? I got some videos I have to show you if you want. It's pretty grotesque. They put the hearts, the kidneys, the liver, and all these body parts on a platter. And, Ramallah Square, you've seen it. They carry the piece of the flesh and they cry out, Allahu Akbar, in a very frenzy fashion. Sort of like they won the lottery. And kids will come, look at your body displayed there, laugh and mock and kick, and that's it. And then you're not allowed to be buried in a Muslim burial ground. So you're just kind of an outcast. That's what the situation is now. Now, in the 70s when I was living there, it was much better. Now it's just, when I used to go to the mosque, 6 people would come. The local blind man, the barber shop across the street, because he was just right across the street. 6 people would go to the mosque. Now, the smallest mosque in my village, probably one of your super churches. You go to Hagee's church, you say, wow, what a church. Wow, 3,000, 10,000 people. Nothing compared to what we have in our villages. Everybody prays to Allah, towards Mecca, towards the Black Stone. It's grown so much. It's beyond recognition.
Well, the hostilities that I faced wasn't as intense as what you just shared. I was in the United States, but one thing happened. I was sharing earlier with a brother that my mom, after I became a Christian 2 years after I was married. And when my mom found out, she came to the United States with the intent of breaking up the marriage and rescuing her son. Well, that didn't exactly work by God's grace. She was successful in creating some havoc. I'm delighted to say that, today she goes to church with me. The Lord has really done a work in her life, and both my mom and my older sister, they have become Christians. I still have other family members that they haven't become believer, not as of yet. Keep praying for them. But one of the things that happened with me as well, that I could not go back to Iran anymore. And even though today, if I go, I've been told, my brother-in-law was in the military, that he retired and they are in the United States, that my name is in a list that the government has of the converts. So I cannot travel to Iran without fear of persecution, imprisonment, and possibly death, as I mentioned.
Yes, Gene.
All of these lands that are now Muslim, North Africa, the Middle East, were once Christian. And according to our Christian theory, most generally it says once Christians start being persecuted, then the church grows. They give the example of China. That didn't happen in Muslim lands. The Christian church, after it was taken over by the Muslims, has continued to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Is there a reason for this?
The question is there a reason for the church not growing under Islamic persecution in Palestine, North Africa, and so on? Yeah. Pat, would you want to respond to that?
I think it's a very good question. We have this cliche, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, and there are illustrations where that's true, as was mentioned, China and other places, and some places in the Muslim world. The first thing people would point out is that the Christianity was very weak in some of those places. Frankly, I'd just like to say about Iran. When we left Iran in '79, I took a survey all over that very large country. I talked with pastors in 17 churches that had one or more Muslim converts, interviewing them about Muslim conversion and how you plant churches from it, and then doing a survey of their people. And I think the high number was 300, we say MBBs, Muslim background believers in the country of Iran, 1979. And persecution has come. During my time there then, just right after that, there were 6 martyrs, just then. I had the privilege of meeting 3 of those before they were martyred. Iran has had a lot of persecution of Christians and Baha'is and all sorts of people. But friends, today, the lowest number that I come across is 160,000 Persian-speaking Muslim background believers in Iran and scattered around the world. God is still working, And tomorrow I plan to deal with that subject of the exciting things we see God doing. I think the wheat is growing strong and the tares are growing vigorously, both. But I'm not really straight on answering your question. It comes back to me a little bit to Satan is a master deceiver, and he set up a system. Their system is, you can remain a Christian, but your kids have to be educated in Islam, and if you want to get water in your village, or a road to your village, you become a Muslim, and they have a system that sometimes it was by the sword quickly, and sometimes it was gradually enforcing these things where generation after generation it converted things, but somebody else may want to respond.
Another question? Yes.
I had a question really for anyone, but it was regarding Ezekiel 38 and 39, and as the Islamic leadership, would they look at that, and of course it's been taught wrong by the Jews, naturally, in the Old Testament, would they see that as part of this chaos? For example, in Ezekiel 38, 1 through 6, it has the various nations, Rosh, and without trying to give names to all of these, Persia certainly is mentioned there, and I expect that would be Iran. And would you see this as the chaos that they think is going to be coming, from which they will be victorious rather than the biblical God of Jehovah?
Yes. What did you want to do?
The Muslims in general don't know what, I forgot your name, sorry brother. Jeek. Well, Brother Jeek, what Brother Jeek was expounding on at the beginning is that Islam worked that way, but the regular Muslim followers don't know the setup. They don't know the mechanism. Plus, Muslims by far don't know anything about your eschatology in general. Very few study the Christian eschatology. But in general, they don't have that good wealth of information that you have about Ezekiel 38, 39. And that's what we need to send to them. We need them to see what is going to happen regarding Iran, Kush, being Sudan or Somaliland or Ethiopia and all these. Libya is also involved with them, North Africa, all Muslim countries. They need to see this. Why? Because once they see the beginning fulfillments of this happening, that they know that there is a different account from what they've learned, that they somehow get the truth. So we need to give them that truth. They don't know the truth, And many in the MBB world say don't give them that stuff because it's an invasion against Israel. Don't talk about that stuff. I remember when I first got involved with answeringislam.org. I was the Lone Ranger. I was the only kind of Americana thinking because my mother was American. And she gave me a lot of these things. And thank God for my mother, because even as a Muslim, she gave me little glimpses of these things. And 93 Oslo Peace Accord, when I saw the Oslo Peace Accord, I said, my mother was right. How did she know? No. How did Joel know? The land will be divided and all these things. No. How did Ezekiel know? How in the world did these guys know? That got my curiosity also going. So we need, curiosity kills the cat. So we need to kill the devil by curiosity too. Thank you.
Yes. I think it was last summer that there was a major conference in Tehran on the coming of the Mahdi, the 12th Imam. And I have a friend, because this is recorded, I won't give his background, a Christian friend who has very good relations with the Iranian government and the mullahs, the religious leaders. And he knew this, and he wrote, and he said, well, when you're studying this, would you mind if I gave a paper, scholarly, of about 600 mullahs or sheikhs, imams, preachers, in this conference, would you mind if I gave a paper on the Christian's view of the return of Christ? They said, yeah, come on over and do it. And he did that. Ahmadinejad was sitting right there in front of him. He shook his hand before it was over. And it's a detailed paper on the return of Jesus Christ. And when it was over, you know what the man said? The moderator? They very much appreciated it. And he said, because he's quoting mainly from Old Testament books, a lot of it. He said, we have got to find these ancient books this guy's quoting from. Muslims think that we have the Torah, the Zabur, which is the Psalms, and the Injil, the Gospels. That's the only words they have for Scripture. And they haven't really read the Bible.
Okay, great. Yes, ma'am.
How do we get to do what he has said that we need to do? How do we do what you are asking that we do
Okay.
to get information to the Muslims?
The question is, how do we practically get this information to the Muslims?
Okay, one of you folks want to take it?
Well, when I first became a believer, the first inclination of a fresh believer is to what? Infect others. So I went in my infection route, try to infect other Muslims. But the obstacles I had was the Western pressure, and no offense. All Muslim background believers that I know came out of Islam into Christianity, have the confrontational method. They want to tell the Muslims that Muhammad is a false prophet. They want to say, that Islam is false. They want to really confront it, say it's from the devil. A lot of them, are that way. Most of us are that way. And we got into the sensitivity. Once you ever get into the sensitivity issues, forget it. Forget sensitivities. It's a battle. I like the Elijah kind of thing, where he challenged the prophets of Baal. We need to challenge Islam. Take him for a challenge. But how do we do it? If you have internet, I was an ardent supporter of answeringislam.org. Finally, I had to pull out of it. I had to start my own ministry. We built the largest website in the world for the Muslim world. It's answeringislam.org. There's thousands of articles responding to Islam. So challenge them. That was a good idea. But I think the mistake is that kind of the sensitivity issues. Now they're recognizing that that needs to be taken away. Shortwave radio. I know many of the radio stations have shortwave radio and things like that. Smuggle things via the military in Iraq, you know. And my story went into tanks and books and stuff like that into Iraq, and they were giving Bibles out. It's just the old-fashioned method, you know. We have to send it out to them. We have to reach out to them. Shortwave radio. You know, there's very little effort is being paid to evangelize to the Muslim world. There's very little effort being paid to help even the persecuted Christians in the Muslim world. You know, you build churches galore, super churches. You watch TBN, you watch all these nice television programs in America, and you donate the money via emotional, you know, and they always push you with the emotional agenda, and then signs and wonders and health and wealth and all this good stuff that you want to. As much as you give the Lord will give to you. So you're pouring money to the Lord so He can heal the hemorrhoidal problems. And that's where all the money is going. So what we need to do is we need to pour the money. We need to be diligent where we pour our money instead of all this ruckus that we're doing the last 20 years or so. We need to pour the money into ministry in Iran, Turkey, and there's plenty of ministries out there. You need to help out those ministries and make sure that they are Bible-grounded ministries and not sensitively operation kind of ministries. But they're out there. You just have to seek and you will find. It's not very hard to get on the internet and find out what the ministries are. There's plenty of them. And help these converts in the Muslim countries, because the only way to reach the Muslims is get, you know, ex-Captain Spocks to reach out to the aliens and don't send Captain Kirk. It's, you know, Captain Kirk costs a lot more money because American missionaries cost way more money. They demand a lot more for living, you know. So there's a plenty in Egypt and all the dying for you to help them, but the help isn't getting there.
Yeah, if I may, I agree with everything what the brother was sharing just a minute ago. I'm reminded that the Lord said that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. You know, when you are a believer and you stand firm on what you believe, it's going to affect the people that are immediately around you, and they're going to affect other people, and that's how it works. But apart from that, I shared with you earlier today about a lady in the Iranian church that was coming there only because she was attending to have some other people so she can speak Farsi too. So in our church, in kind of that Iranian church, we have like a captive audience. You know, you have the young people that bring their parents, you know, because they don't want to stay home all day. So they come with them to church and they hear the gospel. But one thing that's very important in the midst of all these things, I'm reminded of the parable that the Lord Jesus said when He healed that demonic person. And he was sane and he wanted to follow the Lord. The Lord told them, no, but go back to your people and tell them what the Lord has done for you. It is great that the Americans are willing to be missionaries and do work, and it is really needed. But more important than that is, as Walid was saying, is to help the people that are working in this culture from their own culture, because they are the ones that can really reach the people. And this is not to say that the missionaries are not useful. They are extremely useful because they are really doing a wonderful job. And I don't want to really building up Brother Pat here, but I tell you share you a little story that happened last night with us, and you know, it goes back to what Pat was sharing about us just being attentive to see what the Lord is sending our way. We were sitting in a restaurant. And this is a restaurant has a couple of Arab guys that they are running it. And we are sitting and eating dinner. And while all we are eating dinner, and Pat's eye is looking at the line and looking at the cashier, looking at the line and looking at the cashier. Finally, he couldn't contain himself. He says, man, this line is too long. I cannot get 5 minutes to go and share something with that guy. But that's exactly the type of a thing that needs to happen, to be attentive to the opportunities that the Lord provides. And so we can share, because He does bring people to our doorstep that we can share the gospel with them.
Yes.
Last night, Dr. Kane talked about the women in the Muslim countries don't get talked to by the men, and they're fertile for getting the gospel to them. You didn't have time to elaborate. I was wondering if there was an opinion by Walid about whether evangelizing the women is easier than the men, or is that the case over there?
Okay. The question being that is the evangelization of the Muslim women easier than the evangelization of the men? Is that it? Okay.
Yes. Evangelizing, women are not treated as good as men in the Muslim world. You know that, I mean, after all, Antichrist doesn't honor the desire of women. So, Satan hates the woman, as I mentioned before. So there is a form of persecution of women in the Middle East. So it's easier for them to kind of take the gospel. But however, I see a lot of American missionaries, women, because I guess women in America have I don't want to put the guys down, but they got more the ability to want to do something. And 90% of the time when I go speak at a church, it's usually is a woman that worked her way to the pastor's heart, to the king's heart, to bring me in to speak. I don't know why. I guess us guys are not doing the job as well as they are. But they're Esthers. But a lot of Esthers want to go, let's say, to the Middle East and do missionary work. That's not a good idea. Why? Because in the Muslim world, male will never look at the female and accept what they have to say. They look at woman opinion as half of the opinion of a man. The inheritance of a woman is half the inheritance of a man. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam himself, said that woman has half a brain. So for women to go and witness and do missionary work in the Muslim world, I think it's not a good idea. It needs to be the male challenge to the Muslims, or talking to them or witnessing to them. However, women can witness to other Muslim women. That will work. That's not a problem at all. And there is no, okay, which one can receive the gospel easier, the men or the woman in the Middle East? I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us, well, seek the woman and try to send the gospel to the woman. He said, spread the seed everywhere. We just do not know who will and who will not listen. He knows. Some will go on soft soil, some will go on hard ground, some will go on thorns. We're not to decide which one's the thorns and which one is this. We just give out the gospel to everybody, man, woman, child, old man, old woman, everything. So that's my view on that.